All right, let's get started. What I'm going to do tonight is, I guess, the things I said on Tuesday yielded some questions, which is a good thing. So I'm going to try to answer them. The first two here says, I'm not sure what is needed in the WBS in regards to how you would like it presented and formatted. Do you have an example? Number two says, I'm assuming the CBS will be a separate tab in Excel with the totals of each item, then the PBS will be under it with their totals. I've got some slides here from when I taught Estimating 1. And, you know, what I want to say is this is not just, this isn't my little plan. This is industry standard. And I think there's some confusion. I stripped out some of the other stuff. Some of those questions came from different emails. And this is what I want to do. I want to be giving feedback to the questions people have. But I suspect that just because I'm labeling these things and giving them terms and definitions, that it's being interpreted as complexity. This is just industry standard stuff. I may be a little bit unique in that I like to use the work breakdown structure, which to me is just a list of activities. I like to use that throughout the entire construction process. For the estimate, then you have your activities for the schedule, then you have your cost items become pay items, and you can use that in the proposal and or to get paid by and to track the work / your schedule of values. That's a methodology I believe in. You can use that as part of your project controls and estimate, basis of estimate methodology. But I've got a little diagram here that shows the cost breakdown structure with these little lines that are blank. And, you know, all of that could be on the same table. The cost breakdown structure lines could be the same for the price breakdown structure lines, those items. It's just over here, they're cost items. When you mark them up, they're prices. They're price items. They're pay items. Cost items, pay items. Okay? And then, you know, if you get the work, it's schedule value items. So I'm going to show you some examples from work. I dug up work from years ago when I taught estimating. They're not perfect examples. I mean, there's mistakes in them. If I see them, I'll try to point them out. I mean, one of them is codes. We talked about unique codes, you know. Tuesday, there's a lot of that. And some other things I'll show you, but you can think of them as separate. All right? And, you know, don't, when you're talking, you know, please, if it's about cost, say cost, and if it's about marked up cost, then you can say price. But a lot of people don't distinguish between the two, and it drives me nuts because they're two different animals. It's just like people who call concrete cement. I mean, if you've been around concrete very much, it drives you crazy. Words are important. Now, again, this was from another class. We were using Excel, and part of, at least then, the emphasis on Estimating 1 was on quantity takeoff. So we did a lot of repetitive quantity takeoff using spreadsheets to do a lot of it. And so those can feed into your work breakdown structure or cost breakdown structure quantities. That's why these are over here. Now, on your major items, if you can, I'm not asking you to turn them in with the proposal, but if I see some wild quantities, I may want to see some justification. So, you may want to document how you came up with certain quantities, at least your major items, your 20% that make up the 80, all right? Even if it's on screen, take off screenshots or something like that. So, basically, come back to that. To me, this is what I call a work breakdown structure, or a list of cost items in a cost breakdown structure. Most of these are verbs, and so at least the subordinate items are, and therefore they're activities. Give it a quantity, a unit of measure, and then a unit cost. Obviously, the total is the quantity times the unit cost, and you have an extended total. And to me, that's a cost breakdown structure. Just as simple as this right here. Okay. Well, that didn't work well. Wow. Okay, good. But I can't annotate it. Too many things open. My machine's freaking out. How did I get two different? All right. I can't do it that way. Does that look familiar? All right, let's see here. All right. Oy, oy. Let's see. Yay. That's what happens when you play with Windows 8. All right. Back to a cost breakdown structure. So I've got a cost item or an activity. A cost item can be something that's not an activity, but let's not muddy the water. Let's just deal with activities. A quantity, unit of measure. These are the cost categories. All right. So in the grading rubric, when I say cost categories, this is what I want. And this says U because these are unit costs. And they'll add up to a total unit cost for each cost item on these rows. Then I could copy and paste these columns over here to the right, and it would be the totals. How would I calculate that? The totals. For labor, for burden, for material. How would those columns over here be calculated?
Your quantity times your unit price.
Yeah, so I would take the labor, let's say this one here, the labor per cubic yard times 2,600 would be the total over here. And I'm not asking you to do this, but this is what we did in estimating. These are cost sources. You can take a quote and award a quote in your estimate. So someone provides that. You can derive them yourself. All right, that's what estimators do. Or you can use a plug number, which is what most of you are going to do from RS Means. But if you don't have access to either one, you can derive it yourself. And all this is, let's see, this one here is a price breakdown structure. On the bottom, on the top is a cost breakdown structure. They can be separate, or you could just, I could swipe this and drag it right up here, and it could all be in the same table. If you're using the same activities or cost items that are going to be pay items, then keep them in the same table. You don't have to separate them. You'll have to scroll, if you're using Excel, you're going to have to scroll a lot left and right, or you can use grouping. But these items can be direct one-to-one to these items. Now, a lot of times what happens, and I'm not trying to complicate your life, only do it if you feel creative, sometimes several cost items will map to just one pay item. All right? But I wouldn't even worry about that. You got other things to worry about. But the cost breakdown structure totals come down here to the direct cost element. That's by unit, that's by total. And then here's your job overhead. I would keep that in a separate table. Okay? Those are general conditions, typically things that are time related, such as what types of things will we put that are time related in general conditions or job overhead? All right, temporary toilets, the Big Green John. You rent those by the month, and you have them sucked out once a month, and you get an invoice by the month, probably, or the week. I don't know. Temporary utilities. Where are you going to put your superintendent? You're going to put him in superintendent, your project manager, anyone who's salaried on your project. Are they direct cost or are they job overhead? Why? We're talking about one project. You're real close, though. Boy, you're close. They're working on different. How do you know how to charge a project manager's time to any specific cost item? He's running around the job doing it. I mean, it would be a fruitless effort to try to divide his salary per day or per hour into a direct cost item, because he's all over the place. Now, a foreman, right? A foreman's going to be right there with the work all the time, even if they're salaried, which they're usually not. That's direct cost. So job overhead, each pay item has to carry a share of both job and business or corporate overhead. How do you spread that? How do you know how much each pay item carries? Percentage of what? I agree, a percentage. Well, first you have to define your job overhead. All right, so if you have a 300 calendar day project, I can make a list, a table in Excel, and figure out how many Big Green Johns I need, how many salaried employees. I like to put things like forklifts and cherry lifts and cranes in there. It's hard, if they work on more than one item. So you can have all of the cost categories in job overhead, but typically it's time related. Now, temporary fencing is not time related. If you need to build a small little access road and put gravel on it. That's not time-related, but it's still job overhead, right? It's something that's incidental to the direct cost, right? What I say to that is if they're going to pay you for that, then make it a direct cost item. If they're not going to pay you for that, then make it job overhead. But usually they'll pay you for mobilization if you're not being ridiculous and trying to get a lot of money up front, to finance things. And depending on the type of job, that's a big deal. I mean, mobilization costs can be huge, setting up your yard, moving all the stuff to it. I mean, absolutely. So the way I taught it when I taught estimating was I figured out to the best of my ability what the job overhead would be for that project, so I had a lump sum number, okay? And I had a lump sum number for the business overhead that the job was going to carry. So I got two finite numbers, and I would spread their costs to the pay items by the percentage of cost contribution to the total of each item. So here is pay item 1, and the total for that item is $57.10, whatever that is. And, if I had a $50,000 proposal here, or a $50,000 cost here, well, here it is, $993,671. Then what percentage of, what's the percentage of 57.1 divided by 993,671? Ain't very big, but that's the amount of overhead that it carries. Ain't much. And it's easy in Excel to spread that, boom, 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 by cost contribution to the total of the direct cost items. That's the way I would do it. If you have a better way, fine. Just tell me what it is in the basis of estimate. Okay. The basis of estimate is another question that's on here, and all that is, it's a lab report. Y'all are building deliverables with your team. Just write about what you've done. Who did what? Where did you get your cost sources? Who did the takeoff for what divisions? There's a lot of direction here that I've given you when you get to that point. So let's see. This was a little thing. I'll put this up on the website if anyone wants it. That's fine. So I hope my terms haven't made folks think it's more complicated than it is. This is a estimating software application called Hard Dollar. It's just a cost breakdown right here. This happens to be their job overhead up on top. But here's the quantity, the unit of measure, and here they go with their categories. Okay. Categories can be more than what I define. That's kind of a standard one. I didn't even make you do all that. Okay. Now, one of the examples we looked at Tuesday, one of the teams submitted, the one that had the wingdings for the quantities, they had everything in one table, and that's fine. They had their cost breakdown and what was going to be, I think, what was going to be their price breakdown structure, in essence, in one table. That's fine. Whatever y'all want to do. Let's see. This is one of the projects from a student many moons ago, and like the person asking the question, they made tabs with different tables on them, and they did separate the cost breakdown structure from the price breakdown structure. So it looks like, see if I can, this is what I consider the CBS or interchangeably work breakdown structure. It doesn't have verbs in front of these on all of them, okay? But they could still be scheduled in a schedule. And here are the cost categories. Looks like the exact same ones that I'm asking of you. These are by unit, and these are by totals. So they've got an interesting code. Back then, I would make them come up with a code of accounts and tell me what the logic was behind the coding system and so forth. Looks like they use separators here. You could actually use, even with your master format and your uniformat, you can use a different column for each 2 digits. And that gives you a lot more filtering capabilities, if you can imagine that. And a lot of the students in the class would do that. They would have 3 columns for a code of this type, and you could filter and do compound filtering and that kind of thing. One thing I didn't specifically request was, I think you should total all of these categories. Why would I say that? So all of these numbers, starting here, should equal what this is. Why would it be important to know the totals? Now, a lot of people put those up here. A better place to put them is up here. So this number could be sitting right on top of the labor description and so forth. But why would you want to know totals? Just to be geeky?
Know your risk.
The answer was to know your risk. How does that help you know your risk?
Whether it's labor intensive, material.
Exactly. So if I know these totals, whatever this is a percentage of the whole pie. And I'm looking at 68,000. Looks like material and labor are the 2 largest category costs here. And if you do this for a living, you start to realize the bigger your labor is in relation to either material or equipment. What's your equipment to material? What's your, those ratios give you an idea, once you do it for a while, of how much risk there is. And there's obviously more risk in labor than anything else. All right, so if you have a high percentage labor cost category, you should get more return for your risk. So it should help you in how you're going to mark up the job. It could be that materials could be even more, depending on the type of job, more risky than the labor. Depends on where you're at. Who was I talking to the other day? I was talking to someone who builds projects in very remote, well, I'll brag a little bit. One of our graduates, we have 4 graduates that I know of that are working for a particular contractor. 2 of them are in Kabul, one's in West Africa, and one is in, what's the capital city for Pakistan? It's on the end of my tongue. He gave me a call a couple days ago, Monday, and was telling me they're building a government facility there. And getting the materials there is a huge logistical thing, you know. So, you know, depending on the type of job, what the location is, you know, the material could be a huge risk factor. So I won't go any more into that. Now, should I do this too? Should do this too, right? Get an idea? Can't be neutral on a moving train. Yes or no? Don't have to. So it's optional.
You don't know how much of it that you have. It's just unit.
Well, I think you're thinking what I'm thinking. You can't add those up. They're all different units of measure. You can't add up costs with different units of measure. It means nothing. When it's units, unit costs, or unit prices, you can't total them. So that's one of the big mistakes that people would make, and I would count off for in the estimating class. All right, so cost breakdown structure, cost categories. Let's see. This is their job overhead table. They came up with a number. They spread that number to this column. Let's see if there's a formula in here. You can see that's probably the cost contribution spread by total cost formula. These are the same items that we were looking at in the CBS. Again, you can map many to a few if you want to. It adds complexity. But this is what's different. Here we have the price, what I call the price structure elements. So don't get caught up because I give it a word, but we have to have words so I can tell you about it and what it is. And these are, they did it a little backwards in my opinion, but these are totals, these are units. I would have flipped them. But there's the direct cost, the job overhead, the business overhead, the pure profit markup, and boom, there's a total. So I could cut and paste this whole thing over to the end of this CBS, you know, if I wanted to. That would be fine. Does that make sense? So this would be the total the total price, and this would be the unit price. And then I have a schedule of values here, or I don't know what the difference between that and the proposal is. The proposal can just be, boom, one number. That could be your proposal. But see how it's using the same items. They morph from cost items to pay items to, I guess, tracking items in the project controls. Oops. Here's a screenshot from an estimating system that was used. Probably can't use it anymore, but 5 or 6 years ago, this was free, so we all used it. I think it was made with government money by the Corps of Engineers. But here's what I call, you know, the work breakdown structure in this frame, and then down below, looks like I don't know if these are expandable or not. Substructure 01, that may be expandable, or maybe they're mapping all of these subordinate costs to just one item. I don't know, but again, you can see labor, equipment, material, other. Yeah, this was a Corps of Engineers program, so this is where an owner is figuring out his cost, probably of design and construction. But again, cost categories, same stuff. Okay? It also had a place, sometimes you're going to need tables for your resources, your material resources, your labor resources, for both the estimate and the schedule, because I'm wanting you to resource load the schedule. Okay. I think I have this database. I don't mind putting it up, but it needs to be tailored to local conditions where your project is. That's something that you need to put in the basis of estimate. How did you come up with your charge rates for your labor and your equipment? How did you figure your labor burden? How do you figure labor burden? Good thing I'm giving tests in here. It tells you right here. This basic right here, I think, would be a direct wage, and labor burden is nothing more than taxes, insurance, and fringe benefits based upon the labor wage. What would the insurance be for labor? Workman's comp. What would the taxes be? Taxes would be FICA, FUTA, SUTA. FICA is Social Security. SUTA is state unemployment tax. FUTA is federal unemployment tax. This is basic stuff. You need to know how to develop a wage rate to use in an estimate. And you start with, if you're paying someone $10 an hour, little boxes. This stands for straight time, time and a half, and overtime, which is typically double time. So fringe benefits are things like, do you give your people a truck to drive? Do you give them health insurance? Do you give them a week of vacation every year? If you give them a week of vacation, you've got to build that into their wage. Things of that nature. And when I made these slides, it used to be 28 to 35% of the base wage. I got a feeling, I've been in the ivory tower too long, it's about 40 to 45% right now, I think. Would love to hear from some of the online people. So, if you're paying someone a straight wage of $10, that's not all there is to it, especially in your estimate. Equipment. How are you going to figure out, if you have equipment on your project, how are you going to figure out what it's costing you? Again, we've talked about this before. If you call up a rental agency, you're getting a crap number. I think you can get some from RS Means, from the crews and RS Means. But if you call up a rental house, you're going to have their profit and their overhead built into the rental rate. If you're renting it, that's fine. But if you're assuming that it's your owned piece of equipment, then that's not good for an estimate, really. Maybe if it's something small for a short period of time, it might not. And I'm not asking you to go to this level of detail, but before I came here, this is what we would help contractors do. Figure their ownership and operating costs and come up with a charge rate for their pieces of equipment. And you have to factor in all of these variables here. And contractors aren't, on average, very good at this. You have to keep good records. You have to really, you have to know historically how many hours per year you utilize that piece of equipment. And typically that historical data doesn't come easy. Anyway. Okay. Questions on any of that? Let's go back to the questions. So I hope, I hope, I don't want any special formatting, it's just content. If you want to have different levels in the WBS, that's fine. You can collapse and expand it. You can do that by coding instead of using grouping. I think the examples I showed are good enough for me. We already talked about whether these have to be separate or not. They don't. I guess this one, I think he's saying, this team is saying, what we gave you is not what's in our schedule. Our schedule has probably what I was just showing you. And my question to the questioner is, why aren't they the same? They should be the same. Or you're duplicating effort. Or copy the WBS from your schedule and make it your estimate WBS. I'm not going to be real, yeah, that's what I want. Okay. Do you have an outline or an example of the deliverables for the basis of estimate? And I went, this morning as I was drinking coffee, I went online and found some examples. I'll put them up on the website under references or something, but why don't you just go by this? Format it like this. Use these subject headers and make it a lab report. I'm not going to specify a font. I'm not going to tell you how long it has to be. It just needs to be complete. It needs to tell me a lot of damn information in the shortest length possible. I don't care about length. It's hard to be short and concise. Okay? So I think in the notes I put I think I said, right now this is my grading rubric. 50% on content. Did you tell me what you did? In the estimate. And 50% of it, is it professional looking? You're seniors, you're supposed to be able to know how to put reports together. If we failed, we failed. Learn it now. But I'm not going to give you this one-page thing of this is what the margins need to be, this, that, and the other. Hell, copy the recommended practice. Do it in that format, and I'll be happy. Looks like there's 1-inch margins there, and maybe a 11 or 12-point Arial font with the headers bolded. You don't have to do it that way. I just want it to look professional. Well, how do you define professional? I don't know, but I know it when I see it. It's kind of like the Supreme Court in pornography. They don't have a definition. I mean, so I'm sorry to be vague, but you can use bullets. I mean, obviously, use spell check. I'm not going to nail it for grammar unless it's just completely grammar-ridden with badness. Just give it a professional level. I care more about the content. Okay. I mean, is that too broad? Talk to me. I mean, it's freedom. It leaves some subjectivity to me, but you need to tell me. It's a lab report, so if you don't tell me what you did, if I don't know who did what, if I see something in there and it's not well defined, I'll look in the written document. Let me see if I can show anything that I found online. Which you can find these things too, obviously. Let's see. And, you know, it depends on what the project is and who the owner is. I mean, obviously, these folks, they're gonna hit you with all kind. Their grading rubric is going to be about 30 pages long, the specification for their basis of estimate. But we're just looking for examples, right? Oh, this is a template, which I'll put up there. Methodology, you know, it's all pretty much the same stuff. Now, these projects are different. I don't expect you all to get into Monte Carlo risk assessments. If you want to, that's really cool and it'll help. But what's this one? Oh, I'm going to stick that up there too. This is a great document. It's old. I think it's '09, but it's 440 pages long. But it has good stuff in it about estimating, and probably basis of estimate too. That was one of the hits when I put basis of estimate. That document came up, so I'm sure it discusses it. Yeah, I don't think this is a very good one. This is for DOT. I downloaded this for my purposes. There's one more here, maybe. This is also DOT, but obviously, see, methodology is a big part of it. You know, cost basis, what would that be? That would be how did you come up with your charge rates, right? For materials, your resource charge rates, materials, labor, equipment, what we were just talking about. Where did you get your quotes from? If you use plug numbers, say RS means. One of the questions tonight has to do with this exactly. Is it okay if we get a quote and use it as a plug number? Yeah. Just cite the source. Absolutely. Now, I hope you don't drive the local contractors crazy asking them for quotes, which they can't make any money on giving you time, but if you're nice and professional, they'll help you out, probably. At least 1 out of 3 might. Yeah. I used to be one. If I was real busy, I'd say, call me next week or something. But so those are kind of the questions I got. That's and I'm not making fun of this. Please advise, clarify, and dumb me down as much as possible. I just want to say that you know, maybe just the fact that I dissect it and give different parts of an estimate names doesn't make it any more difficult. It may just be an impression. But I'm not giving you anything that's not industry standard. All right, so I think I put my work experience and my training experience up on the web, and there's people that are a lot better than me, but I've been to a lot of contractors, and if you're not doing what we're doing, then you're not doing it right. I can confidently say that, and that doesn't come from me. I didn't invent this stuff. I'm not the author of it. I'm not boasting that I'm greater than anyone else, but I'm telling you, I know what the best practices are, and that's what these are. So, I was just thinking as I was going through this, on wage rates, what about overtime? I mean, a lot of you are going to estimate without overtime, but when it comes to your schedule, you're going to probably have people running double shifts, and, oh, wait a minute, if you didn't account for that in your estimate, you're eating right into your profits. So how are you going to handle overtime? Now, if you don't know how to do it, safest thing to say is we're not doing overtime work. But the schedule better show that. We can go over how to do it later if you want. You can use a composite rate. It just depends. The specs may not let you do overtime. These are hospitals. I know one of them is a replacement for an existing hospital, and you don't have just free reign of the site. Okay. So you're not going to be out there at 5:30 in the morning jackhammering old footings out, or the people in the intensive care unit are going to freak out. So check your specs for some of that stuff. All right. I think I've covered most of those. I hope I have. What's this? All right, well, I won't keep you longer unless you have questions. I hope this helps you get there. Oh, let me say a couple more things before we leave. What I could do a better job of doing is I'm not recording anymore. Maybe I am. Jeez. Yes, I am. What I do need to clarify is what I want you to send me. All right. So I didn't say you had to use Excel. You can use any damn tool you want. They're all going to have cost categories. They're all going to have something. I don't care what they call it. It's going to be a cost breakdown structure and a price breakdown structure. They may not call it that, but that's what they are. What I found out when we built these in Excel when I was teaching estimating was that we would spend about 4/5 of the semester using building and using those spreadsheets to estimate a job. And then I would put them in front of Timberline or Win Estimator or MC Squared, and I would say, you've got this lab period to put together a 10 cost item estimate. And they all could do it. They didn't have to get trained. All they had to do was, okay, where are my charge rates? Where's the cost breakdown structure? Oh, there it is. And how do I mark the stuff up? Boom. So scheduling is kind of like that too. But what I was going to say is, I need to define what you send me for the final deliverable. What I would prefer is it dumped into Excel. If it's from a software application, if you're already doing it in an Excel, you can send it to me in Excel. Or at least I'm going to want to report, because I don't have a whole lot of software applications for estimating right now loaded on my machines. I have hard dollar and that's it. But anyway, more about that later, but I will clarify. And it's about what you can dump out of these things too. So instead of sending me a great big schedule file, dump the data into a report. Typically that can be Excel, and Give me the stuff that way. Okay. All right, well, that's all I have. Thanks.